Stop saying pin.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I'm just pinning the thing because one of my community.
We're live.
Yeah,
Jose, we've got enough of your gibberish and your technical issues. We're ready to go live. Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast with Jose, Noya and Ryan Boniface. How are we both, guys?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Yeah, well, wonderful, Lee. Absolutely. I'm glad you're feeling all right, though, Lee. You are, aren't you? Just checking.
You've got this real cantankerous look on your face, Jose, and I do not like it.
That's a very long word, that cantankerous.
Wow.
I've got this calendar and it gives me a word every day and I have to try and get them in.
Word of the day.
Yeah. So if I start just throwing in a few random words, that is why. Floxy, noxy, knee, hillophilification.
Oh, I've got no idea what you're talking about.
It's a lung condition and it's the longest word in the English language.
Wow.
This is what people come here for. Right, we better move on before everyone drops off.
We'll lose people.
Yeah, thank you everyone who is joining us live on YouTube and TikTok. Just put Jose Noya into your Google machine and you will find loads of links there to click and get involved. Right, the last couple of weeks, Mr. Boniface here has opened his heart and his soul to us. I do genuinely, and I posted this on Twitter today at listen to TOIN. And I said, it's not for me to say that last week's podcast was our best. That's up to the audience. But it was most definitely one of my favourite ones that we recorded. I really enjoyed it. And that was down to you, Ryan, and how much you talked about what you're doing. I thought that was just great. Real life growth, life coaching, all happening on the podcast. It's fantastic. And I'd like to build on that conversation. So the starting point, I'm nicking all these as my topics, by the way, to make up my quota that I've missed, which is quite a get out. But how do you feel after the last couple of conversations we had, Ryan, and where are you with all of that now?
Would it be wrong with me to say I don't really feel much different?
No, I think that's right. I think that's right.
But I think I said that last week as well, that it didn't feel like a big conversation to have because it was either nobody else has it and it's unique and nobody's ever going to understand, or multiple people have it and they are going to understand, and that just is what it is. It didn't feel like a huge revelation or a huge release of anything like that. I was just talking about what I assumed most people have in their head in a monologue. I was meant to look up actually. I'm going to do it now. How many the percentage of people that have an inner monologue?
Fact, I like it.
Like that. Bit of a fact.
30 to 50% of people regularly think to themselves in internal monologue.
Oh wow! I'd have thought.
I thought we were the
That's really low.
Wow.
That's literally what Google was throwing back.
What do you do if you don't have an inner monologue?
I don't know.
Wow, I'm gonna look into this. I find that very interesting.
I've got a feeling that percentage is a bit low.
Yeah,
that seems very low.
Because I said it last week that if the three of us have it, then on balance of probability, you'd think that.
This is why I thought it's got to be like most people, and it's a bit of like people who have that weird cabbage smell that only 10% of people can smell, or the amount of people that can roll your tongue. I thought it'd be a really small amount that wouldn't have it.
Isn't there a herb that you have to have a certain gene if you think it tastes nice or not?
That's
going to wind me up now. I can't remember what it is.
I feel like,
but there is like a.
Off track already, by the way.
But I say, look, we're going a bit of a diverging route here, guys. We're just talking about Ryan's voice.
The ramblings of some approaching middle-aged men, and Jose, who's past middle-aged men.
Oh, right. Someone's put here coriander.
That's it.
There we go. Thank you.
It tastes like soap.
Ash Bottomley. Thank you, Ash Bottomley. Thanks, Frizz, with that, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash. It's coriander that tastes like soap. Some people have a gene that makes it taste like soap.
I did not look at this. We are learning today.
Yeah.
I learned something new. I love this.
So I want to dive more into your self-critical part of your inner monologue that we were talking about, Ryan, that you were dealing with. And there you go. I knew it would come back to me. And you talked about the fact that if you were to praise yourself, that inner monologue would be like, nah, what are you talking about? You're an idiot. No way. That's fucking stupid. Rah, 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 rah. I swear, because you were very sweary with this last time. I still forgot to tick the 18 box. I'll try and go back and tick a few of them, possibly. No, it's good. This is when it's genuine. No, of course I won't. I'll have forgotten it by the time we finish recording this. I'm a shambles of a logistics man, I tell you. The worst producer in podcast history. But
There's an
I've,
award for that, I'm sure.
I've been consistently bad for the last 5 odd years, so it's good. But yeah, that fierce self-critical part that came in.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with other people where they've had this same thing as well, where there's just this core inner, and it's not even doubt, it feels more aggressive than doubt, but this lack of
Yeah.
self-belief in yourself that drags you down isn't right, because obviously you're doing really well with stuff, and it's almost like you're doing that in spite of that. But it's like no matter how many things go well or improve or you're on this right path, that voice is just in, and it's almost like it doesn't keep up with you. Like as you're rising up in terms of your skills and success and abilities and goals and whatever else, it's almost at that level keep pulling you back down. And I do think, tying back to what you said on you don't really feel any different, it's because this sort of stuff isn't instant change. It's small little incremental changes that you almost don't even notice. But then if you were to look back over 3 years, you can see the change. Hold on, I need to let my cat in and out of my little office because there we go. All professional stuff going on the podcast. It's all incremental change, but I think when you look back, and I think we touched on this last year, I think as you get older, it's easier to see that change. When you're the age you are, it's the pace of life and time is different, and you're more in the moment to not see that. And it's also easier for me and Jose sitting on the outside to look at you and see it, because I think the stuff you're talking about now would not have been a conversation 3 or 4 years ago. If we'd have said, look, you need to work on blah blah blah, whatever the thing is, you'd have told us why you already think you're really good at that. And now you're actually like, which actually with your reflection last week, you probably weren't thinking. In your head, you're probably like, absolutely, they're right, and you can't do that, and you can't improve. But then outside Ryan is overcompensating the other way, like you touched on last week, with almost fighting that demon that you've got in your ear, giving you all this thing. So what you're outward and what you're inward are two complete parallels. But you're in control of that now because you know it and you understand it. And it's really easy for me to say, you just need to tell that voice to think differently. But that is what needs to happen. But actually that only happens every day by challenging and challenging and challenging and challenging and switching that mindset to where you become your own inner cheerleader.
Yeah.
And I know that because I've done it, because I can recall times when people in my life got very frustrated with me because it was doom and gloom. This isn't work. This is going to get a problem. Worry, 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 worry. And now I'm like, literally nothing can go wrong. And even if it goes wrong, it's not gone wrong because I can fix it. And my inner bit just doesn't, I'm a complete hopeful or hopeless optimist in that everything's going to be great. But it was a massive shift. And that really, it helps me. I mean, it sets me up for some massive falls as well, but it helps me. But it's that journey of changing that shift. And I guess that's the bit I wanted to hone back to. It's that voice and why it's, and why, not just for you, why it's there for so many people, knocking you down, despite the fact you do not deserve that, but it's in there doing it to yourself. So I just wanted to put that out there before I forgot as it popped back in my head. But I'd love to know your view on it, and Jose as well, from your perspective in your coaching view, what people can do with that kind of inner terrorist that you've got in your head dragging you down.
Yeah.
Ryan,
go on.
You want me to go?
No, you go. You go.
I think reflecting on the things we spoke about last week, the stuff that doesn't make any sense to me is how I never hear the voice when it's something work related. And that might be because the overcompensation of how I used to outwardly be, and to an extent still am outwardly might just have oppressed it so much that it doesn't appear. But I said it last week, and I would say it again now. I, maybe up until about 6 to 9 months ago, used to get comments all the time about being too confident about things, bordering on arrogant, perhaps self-righteous here and there, and things like that. And it was never ever intended to be that way. I never got out of bed and was like, you know what, I'm going to be an arrogant prick today because I can. It was just what I believed I've always said this: if I believe I'm something is wrong in any scenario, and I believe the way I see it is right, I will forever die on that hill. It could be the smallest thing ever about how Hellman's ketchup's better than Heinz, for example. It's not. I will die on the
Scandalous.
hill. Exactly. But it's something as trivial as that. I will die on the hill every single time. And it's taken I think a lot of years really of being not beaten down about it, but constantly getting the feedback of you're too full of it, you're too full of yourself, you're too self-righteous about it, for me to go, basically it's a bit of an fu to everybody that says it, so I can go, see, I can be reasonable, I can be normal. It's never it's And that's sometimes the way, most of the time, the way my mind works. If you tell me I can't do it, I'll prove to you that I can do it, not because I want to do it, but because you've told me I can't. That's the way. And that's obviously, as you get older, especially if you're younger listening to this, that's how you find success. um that's how you find success, and how you find improvement in yourself, is finding those different avenues that work. Some people, if they got that kind of feedback, would approach the person that said it and say, help me then. That could never be me. And that's fine, because that's who I am as a person. Or if I do that, it's incredibly rare for me to do that. It takes a lot. And I must either really respect and trust and value the opinion of that person, or I would have a different, or I have a different relationship with them than what usually you would have with people. Um, so that rang heavily true to me after last week, about how can I be, in some scenarios, or it's all I hear, and in other scenarios, I don't hear it. What's that all about? Um, but then, kind of touching on what you were saying, Lee, about how I'm not the only person in the world that does this. There are certain people that are either too high or too low with their inner monologue, and they have to find that even balance of either filtering it out themselves, or teaching it, or nurturing it to not be that way. And I stand by it. And I did get some tips last week, obviously. I stand by it. I'm still not 1,000,000% sure what it will take to break the back of it. And that's fine, because that will come with time. Even if it's 0.0000001% a day, eventually I'll get there. I might have to live a few hundred years based on the numbers I think I just gave. But eventually you will get there. So it's just trying it. And I would say, since I moaned about it last week, I've not heard it an awful lot, but I haven't heard positive inner monologue either. So, when did we sit down last week? Was it Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I had Paul the day after, on the Friday. And you know what? All I could picture the entire time were your two mugs in my head,
What a
saying,
day.
"Don't let it,
What a
don't let
day
it,
that
don't let
is.
it." Right? Maybe that's the start. Maybe it's the picture Lee and Joe and shut it up, and then eventually I need to find a way to turn it positive, turn whatever comes through positive. But that's my route to starting that conversation with myself to get somewhere with it. Maybe that's how it feels in my head. Um, I'm not sure if I'll ever get there. I'm not sure if I'll ever fully shut it up. But then again, I'm not sure anyone ever fully shuts it up, because people still have self doubt in themselves, and people still struggle with self confidence forever and ever. Um, but I don't think it's a self confidence thing, because, again, if you spoke to people that know me professionally or know me in other ways of life, they'll tell you he could never not be self conscious about himself, because he's just not that type of person, because I push it so far the other way. And I don't think pushing it so far the other way means that I'm faking it, or masking it, or pretending to be something that I'm not. I just think I lean so heavily into the things that I feel good about myself with, that I just lean on that and push that, rather than pretending and going fully all the way into it, if that makes sense. Um, I find it odd that I don't hear it at work, but I feel like I do a lot of good work these days. I feel like I do stuff that's feel like I do stuff that actually makes a change to my people that report into me, the department that I work in, and the business that I work for as a whole. And maybe that knowledge of that validation without getting that validation, if that makes sense, is enough for me to feel satisfied with the job that I've done, if that makes sense.
It does, and
I'm
this
kind
is
of
the bit I
speaking
think
a lot of
the
phrases
biggest
behind it.
bit. Don't get me wrong, external praise or all of that is great, and I'm saying I love it, but the internal I feel good about what I've done is the most important thing, and that's part of the jigsaw puzzle on this voice, because that voice telling you I'm pleased with that is the same voice that's saying, you're a moron and why are you even trying.
Yeah,
And
but it sounds really different.
it does, but it's
It
all
sounds
from
really different.
it's
But
all
yeah, I completely
it's
agree.
all from the same place and leaning
Yeah,
into that. And actually, I just want to caveat something I said earlier, where I said I went from negative to positive. I don't know, my outlook in life is hopeless optimistic, but it's not because I'm sunshine and rainbow and I'm skipping along and everything's glorious in every situation. It's
yeah,
because when there's a challenge, I go straight to fix it mode. So it's not.
yeah.
It's just right. What can I do? What can I do? What? There's no. This isn't going to go well, and I've had that. This is going to go wrong. This is a problem. And actually, even if I think there will, I foresee this could happen. This could happen. This could happen. It's then right. And what will I do? And what will I do? What? It's all. Everything's fixable. So not everything's just going to be great, but everything. I just want to caveat that in, because it's not like from doom and gloom to skipping around. It's doom and gloom to I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do
And
this.
that's the other thing I wanted to mention before I pass off to Joe. I have always been a self-identified realist. I've always been the glass that has half the liquid it needs to be completely full up. It's never half empty, it's never half full. It has 50% of the liquid it needs to be at its maximum volume, right? That's always been the person that I've been. Sometimes that could be construed as always playing devil's advocate to situations or problems or questions or scenarios, and sometimes always playing devil's advocate to stuff can make people feel that you're not on side and are always challenging things, or not. I don't want to use the word negative because that isn't at all what I think people say about me, but I think it's more where somebody, if somebody brings an idea to a table, I think about, kind of like you do, Lee, about a problem or a situation. I kind of think, I feel like I'm a bit of a problem solver. I'm definitely a driver in terms of my kind of like leadership styles and things like that. So it's definitely give me problem, solve it, solve it, solve it, solve it. Do this, do that, do that. What what I've had to try and quell, and that's where the inner monologue sometimes gets a bit funny, is when people provide their own solutions to problems, I can sometimes think that in a monologue will think, shit idea, shit idea, shit idea, shit idea. And I haven't even thought the thought through, but because I've not thought of it, it has to be a shit idea. And that's where people I think sometimes struggle with me, or sorry, sometimes I struggle with people thinking that I can be a bit self-righteous about things. And I've really had to quell that back and be um, better collaboratively, especially when working with people professionally about. And I would say that I've never once outburst and gone, shit idea, I'm not listening to that. But it's about how my body language and my facial expression and
Yeah.
how I physically respond to it is actually perceived. And I think I've got better at that. Um, but being a realist, I don't think I like it. I think I would either rather be a somebody that's overly positive, or I'd rather be somebody that's overly negative. Because being a realist means I understand both sides, and that's sometimes quite a hard place to be because you don't know what side to lean on sometimes. If you're always positive, as Lee kind of refers to, it's always okay. You brought me a problem. How can I fix? How can I fix? How can I fix? Cool. That's all you're ever going to be, because you've either nurtured yourself or you're naturally that kind of person that solves all those problems. If you're on the other side of the fence all the time, you know what you're going to get. So you can teach yourself that when you hit those barriers and go, this is all horrendous, I don't want to do any of it, I quit, you can teach yourself to come through that. Being a realist, I roll a two-sided dice, and I have to hope it lands on a side that I can deal with sometimes. That's how it feels. Or I flip a coin, not a two-sided dice. That's a bit silly. You flip a coin. and I hope that it lands. You have to guess what side it's going to land on in like a split second. And I don't think that helps with the inner monologue, because if I really want to believe something's positive, but that inner monologue is like, that's horrendous, I'm so conflicted in how I can be sometimes. And that's an insight to my life. So welcome.
Jose, share your thoughts
Mm.
before I take over again.
Yeah,
That's not me saying I will
it's a
take
great-
over. I'm just stopping myself doing it.
yeah, it's a great conversation, and it's an interesting to hear the battle you've got within there, Ryan, and who's going to win. And I think I really enjoyed about that was, thanks for by the fact I like the fact that you're challenging that. Oh,
I would say that
your idea
coin,
is shit, and you're like recognizing that, because actually,
I would just say, sorry, that coin often lands more on the positive side than it does the negative side. It's especially in the last 3 or 4 years, as Lee mentions, it often lands more on the positive side than it does on the negative side. I'm sorry, carry on.
no, I love that, because when you do that, you open yourself up to possibility, because the reaction is it's shit, but actually, you said you hadn't had a chance to think it through, which I heard,
Yeah,
and then that allows you to think it through and actually say, oh, this actually might have some value, and that allows you to expand, because it might have been something that actually I first thought it was shit, but actually, oh, when I've thought about it, actually there's some value in this, or we can combine it with this idea to build this idea. So I really like that, and that's real massive personal growth, which I think is fantastic. I can only talk about my own personal experience, because I don't really know. You only know really what's going on with you, right?
yeah.
You're describing it through your words. Same with Lee. We're describing what we are. So for me, was my mental health, right? And sort of going back here and looking here, and Frizzle was saying here as well on TikTok, saying, was an interesting question. Frizzle said, hello, oh no, it's not a bit. What was it? Something I've always wondered is why everyone copes with things in different ways. And we've almost described that, how we deal with the voice in our head. And for me, it was when I had my mental health, I was having that deprecating voice. So the only way I got help was to acknowledge it, and to know that everybody else had it. And that was almost like a little bit of a relief. And then, as I said before, all the work, all the counselling, all the coaching, all the feeding myself material that's going to help me turn that voice around. Not fake positivity, but possibility, the voice of possibility. And now if I think about the voice in my head, I don't really have it. I only have one that encourages me, or in sort of Lee's words, I suppose, it's just telling me, how can I navigate this? What's the best way forward? So I don't really have anything that's put me down now. It's more encouraging rather than telling me you're terrible. It's like an encouraging voice. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have I'm going to be realistic, or as in you said, Ryan, a realism. Sometimes people say stuff and you judge it, and I'm trying to go away from that. And there's much less now, but you still have it, because we're human beings, and I still have that, and I rein that back, and I say, hang on, let's be like you, Ryan. You know, yours one says, yours one says, that's a shit idea. Mine says, that's not going to work, or whatever, right? It just judges it straight away, and I try and pull back. I go, hey, wait a minute. Or if I'm coaching someone, they say, I want to achieve X, and I think, oh, they'll never achieve that. My brain say, oh, we'll never achieve that. But actually, hey, this is me. This is about them. So they think they can achieve it. So I've got to support that. Go on.
There was once a man who both of you know as well, who taught me more about emotional intelligence in about 3 hours than I've ever learned in my life. Talking about conscious biases, unconscious biases, and things like that, and they will always exist. And the reason I mention it is because you're in a monologue, or your mind, or whatever thoughts you have, will succumb to those biases. It's just what you do with them that makes you the person that you are. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And I think being aware of it and understanding it, as you referenced, Joe, and as I'm doing a horrendous job at trying to acknowledge, is that understanding those biases, and in my case, it's because it hasn't come out of my mouth, is a challenge that is actually sometimes harder to overcome than you think. It feels like you're waiting for people to call you selfish, and that you're not open to collaboration and things like that. But that isn't always the case, because everyone will go through it. Everyone that's worked in a working environment, that's either listening to this podcast or on it will have been in a meeting or in a conversation at work or anywhere, and they will have heard somebody say something, and they will go, "Horrendous idea, horrendous take. What are you talking about?" But it's what you do with that thought that defines sometimes who you are
Hmm.
or how you are, so to speak.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Lee. Yeah. What about you, Lee? 'Cause you're waiting to say something. You were saying you're waiting. So.
No. I was conscious I spoke a bit too much when you challenge yourself and you reflect. This is a big part of the
Getting
growth.
it too.
Oh, have I died? Could you not hear me for a second there?
You have
No, you're still
slightly,
here.
yeah,
We can hear you, but you're a bit jerky.
Oh, wow.
bit Dalek-y, I think is the phrase I would
Yeah,
say.
I'm a bit of a
Dalek-y.
jerk.
Yeah.
I've got an unstable internet warning, so maybe this is time to wrap this up, and I think we continue this in sections over the next few months and over the next year run. So I think you opening up like this.
You're back now. If
Am I
that's any
back?
better for you.
Am I here? I don't know how
Yeah, you're
much we
back now.
heard and didn't hear and how this will work on recording. Apologise to everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. But I was going to say, I think these conversations and you reflect on it, you think on it, this is how you train that inner voice. This is where the growth happens. So I think we go in and out on this, but I think, every few weeks or once a month or something, if you're good with it, revisit this topic and have this conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think it's been fantastic. These have been the last 3 shows have been some of my favourite ones that I've done. I think it's fantastic. We had this view, didn't we, Joe, about inviting people on to do like live coaching so people could witness in action, or even doing it as road shows. And I think this is it. This is it happening right now. So yeah, it's been fantastic. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I hope it gives, like you said, loads of people out there will be at different stages in these sorts of journeys. So hopefully this sort of conversation helps and inspires them as well. So, unless we've got any final thoughts, I'll do some wrapping up on this before my internet dies.
Yeah. I just want to say I wish I'd had this sort of podcast or something I could have when I was going through that challenge, because when I was going through the challenge, I honestly did not think anyone had that voice. And it's really weird when you think back, because clearly is the case. Ryan got some stats up right, to 30 to 50% or something. But I thought no one had it. It's only when I read that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, when I recognised, loads of people have this voice. It's okay. I'm not going crazy. Everyone has it. It's just what we do with it. Like Ryan said, it's how we manage it. And I think it's really powerful. So thank you. Can I just give us some shout outs quickly before we wrap up? Amelia, thank you for gift the badge. To a massive shout out to Frizzle, up to 5k likes. Frizzle's just absolutely blown this live away on the TikTok. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Frizzle. I want to give it a shout out, especially for you. And Ash, thank you so much for your comments as well.
She's made a good point, actually, Ash. So Ash, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, Ash has ADHD, and watching her get from point A of a thought to point B of explaining her thought is like you're on a roller coaster all the time, because her mind jumps from up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and seeing how she presents it and how she presents herself is fascinating. Compared where I don't have that, and I don't have I don't want to call it a mental challenge because that's not really fair, but where I don't have to go through that mental process that she goes through, it's crazy how different people, and I think Frizzle said it as well. Where is it? Something I always wondered is why everyone copes with things in different ways, and it's mental that Lee said that he often had negative thoughts and he had to push them into positive thoughts, but he is now a overarching optimist. I have these similar thoughts, but I'm a realist. And it's like, how are we all functioning, without trying to get into too much of a Black Mirror psych, how do we all get to the same point, but go through all our different roadmaps in our heads to get there? It's such a weird concept to think about, isn't it?
But I think this is why these conversations are necessary.
Yeah,
so we can all
make
bring that
people
into
understand
the light.
that it is normal to be not normal, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying is, so people go through but we go in slightly different ways. So it's a real awareness piece. So yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. It's great. Over to you, Lee.
As I said the last few weeks, Ryan, just thank you for sharing on this. It's fantastic. This is just to cap on your point, it's crazy how we're all so similar but completely different at the same time, and somehow it works.
Yeah.
And I say we'll keep revisiting this, but thank you for opening up on this, Jose, for your insights. Everyone out there for listening. People getting involved on YouTube and TikTok. Again, Jose Noya, Inspirational. Stick it in your Google machine. Follow, subscribe, whatever you need to do so you'll get notified when we're going live and you can get involved with this. And Ash especially for joining on the TikTok, and just generally for putting up with Ryan as well.
Yeah,
Also, Ash has
that is tough.
Ash has got the gift of badge on there.
Person.
Ash has got gift of badge that, you know. Thanks, Ash, for joining. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And
it's good to know.
We'll be back again next week, where I'll probably have to come up with a topic instead of just getting Ryan to talk about himself.
Well, it'll be Joe's turn at some point.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Jose's. It's not even mine.
No.
I've done like 10 in a row now.
Lee can't use you, Ryan, to have his subjects. He's got to come up with his own.
And on that point, 3, 2, 1, Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
Catch you guys later.
Thanks, TikTok. Really appreciate you. Thanks.